Order in Egypt During the New Kingdom by Etienne, Joey, Montana, Pamela, and Stefan. Our question and what's to be covered. Architecture in the New Kingdom of Memphis, Egypt. How did the world's first societies use architecture to try and understand and order their world, and how the New Kingdom of Memphis, Egypt used architecture to exemplify their religious beliefs, which made up the building blocks of their society. Architecture in the ancient world was similar to our world today, in that it helps depict an overall meaning or representation of what society believes. Like many countries in the world today, ancient civilizations used religion as a guide to their way of life by condemning those who have done sinful actions and rewarding those who have done good deeds. A society in the ancient world, which was prominently organized by religion, was the New Kingdom in Egypt. This was long-standing society used architecture to try and understand and order their world by having their architecture be a representation of their religious beliefs and powerful divine pharaohs. This made up the building blocks of their society. It helped the pharaohs keep order among the Egyptian people and gave worship to the gods that were representations of the world around them. The architecture that was built to order the New Kingdom Egyptian were primarily temples and tombs. These buildings helped the New Kingdom last for almost 4 decades. And like I said, here are some facts. It lasted from 1570 BC to 1069 BCE. It was the 18th dynasty. Imperial Egypt expanded over its older borders to form an empire. Its most famous pharaohs of the era were Hatshepsut, Thutmose III, Amenhotep III, Akhenaten and his wife Nefertiti, and Tutankhamun and Ramses II. To organize the meaning of the world, Egyptians advanced religion, and Amenhotep I made many religious advancements. Temples built during the New Kingdom were the most important buildings to the people and pharaohs of the time. They were large open buildings with many pillars for support. They had long, flat shrines and a chapel as well as storerooms towards the back. They were mostly comprised of chiseled limestone that was decorated heavily with paintings and hieroglyphs. These temples were sacred to the people of Egypt because its representation of the pharaoh's power and connection to the god which they looked to for guidance in their lives. They used the gods to justify what was going on in the world around them. The Luxor Temple was located on the east bank of the Nile River. This temple was a large place of religious festivities and worship in ancient Egypt. It was dedicated to the god Amun, the god of fertility and life. It was built by Amenhotep, Ramses II, and Tutankhamun. The pylon of Ramses II was the entrance of the Luxor temple, which was covered in paintings of Ramses' military accomplishments. There were large statues of Ramses that guarded the entrance. For anyone that entered this temple, these statues would instill a fear of the pharaoh's power, which would keep order in their kingdom. This led to the court of Ramses, court of Amenhotep, and the Hypocet Hall, which were all comprised of many columns which were covered in more hieroglyphs and paintings of the pharaohs, which depicted more of their greatness and connections to God. Hatshepsut was the most successful pharaoh. Although being a woman, she used architecture to display her power. The Temple of Hatshepsut, also known as the Monarchy Temple, was one of the greatest temples in the New Kingdom. It was covered in painting that depicted the divinity of Hatshepsut. She used this large temple to convey her royal authority over anyone who dared to defy her. The temple was built against a large cliff that creates a very daunting fear for anyone that sees the large temple beneath. It was covered and sculptures of Hatshepsut in many different positions, and in order to depict her greatness to anyone who walked through. She built it like this to create a worship of her as a pharaoh, so she could bring order to their kingdom. The Temples of Karnak is one of the greatest sites of the New Kingdom with a span of 100 acres. It was comprised of 10 large pylons with all covered in paintings of different rulers and gods. The Great Hypocete Hall was the biggest part of the Connaught, and is standing 134 columns and the size of 100 meters by 50 meters with a height of 20 meters. Connaught also housed the temple of Ramses II, Kronos, Amun, and Phot. All besides the temples were temples dedicated to the gods: Amun, the god of fertility and life; Phot, the god of craftsmen and architects; and Khons, the god of moon and time. These temples were some of the most magnificent and largest buildings in ancient Egypt, which show the importance of their religion and how they used it to understand and bring order to the world they lived in. However, even though the pharaohs built these large temples, they buried themselves in separate locations to keep themselves safe from tomb raiders. Most of them were buried in the Valley of King in rock-cut tombs. The tombs were elaborately decorated and offered clothes, food, and drinks to the pharaoh's afterlife. An incredible tomb discovered completely intact was that of King Tut, or King Tutankhamun. When the tomb was opened, a great variety of items were discovered inside the king to have a successful and entertaining afterlife. It seemed like Tut was going on a trip and needed his possessions with him to go on a trip to the afterlife. In his tomb, archaeologists found headrests, a pillow, a fan, board games, throwing sticks to hunt birds in the afterlife, jewelry, pendants, a chariot, and even perfume. Although the pharaoh's tombs had some of these personal all of the pharaoh's tombs had some of these personal items in them, and this emphasizes the importance of religion in the New Kingdom because it reinforces the fact that pharaohs would have another life after death and needed their possessions for that life. Ob- Obelisks. Uh, Throughout all of the temples and tombs, there are large pillars known as obelisks, which are almost like an updated version of ancient pyramids seen in the Old Kingdom. They signify not only the strength of the rulers, but their closeness to God. They were often covered in hieroglyphs, which depicted their heroic deeds of the rulers and their divinity. When people would see these huge structures, they would be captivated by their sheer size and be inclined to believe and trust the ruler that made them, just like the large temples they created. This is how the rulers would gain control of the people to help create a cohesive society, thus keeping order and religious ideas of the populace. Thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed our presentation